Okay, cool. I can see you. So, Brian, if you can just switch across to Gino, then we'll hand over to Gino, who I think is going to definitely pick up on many of the points that Chimith raised there. And here we have a true cloud evangelist from the dungeons of AWS in TymeBank. And look forward to Gino sharing his experiences with us. Over to you, Gino.
Cool. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to firstly welcome everyone that has joined the past few sessions. The session that Jonathan did, if you were there, he went into a lot of the in-depth story at Time, our mission and what we set out to accomplish. If you didn't manage to catch that session, I highly encourage you to go and have a look at the previous sessions for the entire series. I think it was very informative. But you all showed up here today because you saw the title and you're interested in WSO2, obviously. You're interested in AWS, cloud. But most of all, I hope you're interested in infrastructure as code. And if you're not already, I think my biggest goal here is to get you interested and excited with infrastructure as code. Our story at Time, if you're looking at how to deploy WSO2, there are many, there's quite a bit of documentation out there on how to deploy WSO2. If you're looking at how to deploy WSO2 in cloud, or if you're just looking at cloud in general, there's quite a bit of documentation out there as well. But deploying, the more important thing for me to bring across to you is what we did at Time and how we did it at Time. So before we carry on too much, let me introduce myself. My name is Gino Imbrailo. I'm an integration developer or engineer. I've been working at TymeBank for the past 3 years. My focus was on deploying and maintaining our WSO2 integration platform at TymeBank, which included quite a bit of infrastructure work that I had to do, quite a bit of networking, that type of thing was involved with what I had to do at Time. I was also given the task to deploy the WSO2 integration platform in the cloud at Time in AWS. And then later it was my job to optimize our cloud deployment. So 2 questions to get us going. Why do we use WSO2 as an integration platform? And why the move to a cloud platform? I'm sure you have your own answers to why you use WSO2 as an integration platform, but my answer is I get to do what I do best, and WSO2 takes care of the rest. So if you manage to have a look at Chris Durney's presentation a couple of weeks ago, you would see that he showcased what developers had to go through in the integration space previously, what developers that were trying to offer web services had to go through. And it's something that I don't think, I personally haven't had to go through it, and I don't want to go through it. And the fact that I don't have to go through it is largely attributed to platforms like WSO2. I can focus on coding, and the integration, WSO2 can focus on that. So my answer to why we moved to a cloud platform is very similar. It's cloud platforms have got managed services, and cloud platforms allow me to do what I do best, and they take care of the rest. So the cloud is a perfect place for my infrastructure because they manage my infrastructure for me most of the time. If my business is in finance or bringing financial services to customers, clients, I don't want to be focusing on my databases. If my job is to code or to integrate, I don't want to be focusing on the operating system that that my servers are using. I don't want to be focusing on the virtual machines that my coder is running on. And that's what we get with AWS. We get that those managed services. So what I also like about cloud is it caters to organizations of all different sizes. So if you are a small organization or you're a one-man band, then you can't focus on everything. Even if you knew how to do everything, you don't have enough time. So the cloud offers you that those managed services as your one-man band to get out to market quickly. The same thing with larger organizations, where if you take away focus on what you do, then you're not in for a good ride. You should be focusing on what you offer to your customers and your clients. So you could, instead of having teams, entire teams look after infrastructure, if you move to the cloud, now it starts being looked after for you. So obviously with working in integration, I found that integration and DevOps go hand in hand. Very much how in DevOps, well, in integration, firstly, our main job is to get people or different services talking to each other. In DevOps, our main job is to enable teams in our organization to do what they do best. And what I like about WSO2 and the cloud is those platforms enable me to enable the rest of my organization. So coming back to our personal case, well, firstly, this slide of mine, it looks a little bit biased, but I am biased when it comes to cloud and when it comes to my integration platform. But back to our specific case, when we started deploying WSO2 in the cloud, we did it almost exactly the way we did it on-prem. We did what's called a lift and shift, and we took everything that we had deployed in a data center, and we just took it into the cloud. And we soon realized that that wasn't the best way to go. We weren't getting the full benefit of being in the cloud. AWS, I think I mentioned, AWS offers hundreds of services, managed, fully managed services, or partially managed services. We weren't making use of a fraction of them, or that fraction was quite small. So we soon realized that we wanted to start making use of all the buzzwords everyone was talking about. We wanted to start using CI/CD pipelines and start managing our deployments using CI/CD pipelines. We wanted some better monitoring on our platform. We get at time we do millions and millions of calls every single day, or we integrate millions of calls every day, or we might be sitting on billions at the moment. But we wanted to get some insights into how our platform was coping with all these calls, what calls were being called the most, and so AWS offers CloudWatch, which could give us some insights into our environment. We wanted to start using automated deployments with our CI/CD pipeline. And very, very importantly, we wanted to start scaling automatically. And it was when we started looking at the automated scaling that we got, it was a bit of a daunting task for us. So being a TymeBank, being a subscriber with WSO2, we saw that WSO2 could provide us with some CloudFormation scripts, CloudFormation being AWS infrastructure as code language. And we went from there. I mean, WSO2 had helped us out quite a bit already there. We just needed to now expand on it, and we needed to tailor and customize those scripts to what we needed at time. So I think the most important part of, or the most exciting thing that came of this was we started using infrastructure as code. So what is infrastructure as code? If you haven't heard about infrastructure as code before, you've certainly heard about it today. You'll hear a lot more about it today, and I'm sure you'll be hearing a lot more about it in the very near future. It is the latest and greatest thing in IT. And Chamath mentioned quite a few, his comparison between SRE and DevOps was infrastructure as code starts crossing those boundaries. So infrastructure as code, what is it? It's all in the name. It is your infrastructure as code. So on the screen in front of you, you should be seeing an IDE with there it's 1,655 lines of code, and I've removed a bunch of it already, so it's much longer. But all of this code represents a fully distributed WSO2 API manager. Not just the product, but all the infrastructure behind it. So it represents the auto scaling groups, it represents the virtual machines, the databases, all the networking, so our subnets, our load balancers, it represents security. Everything is defined there. And if I make this 3D, we could say we have this box with all of that stuff defined in this box. And when we open this box, we get all of those services. Everything gets deployed for us. So when we were looking at our infrastructure as code, and we started, our first deployments took about 45 minutes for an initial deployment in the cloud. It was a little bit slow, but we wanted to, well, it was very slow. We wanted to speed up those deployments, and we sped them up quite a bit. So we made WSO2 configuration part of our infrastructure as code. And in doing so, we were able to use so much more of what AWS had to offer us. And we just found that WSO2 and AWS went together like insert your cliched comparison here. So why do we make use of infrastructure as code? I've boiled it down to 3 main points. And those points are speed and agility, flexibility and control, reliability and resilience. So what do we mean by speed, and agility. Well, if you look at the picture I got there, it's a picture of a mousetrap. And I find that that picture is the most pertinent when it comes to the word agile. And I think agile is this overused buzzword in the industry. Everyone claims to be agile. Everyone wants to be agile. I can understand wanting to be agile, but it's dangerous to claim you're agile when you're not. Those dangers include, or being agile is being able to change direction at any point. If you're claiming to be agile and your business department thinks they're agile, they're going to want to change direction very quickly or often. And if your development or your IT department is not agile, it's going to take way too long to change direction. It's going to put a lot of people under a lot of strain. So agility is actually continuously improving and deploying new products with a minimal impact on the rest of the business. At TymeBank, we were doing about more than six deployments into production on a daily basis. And that was just our team. A lot of these deployments happened during banking hours, and we were able to, with infrastructure as code, we were able to do these deployments with no impact to the rest of the business. I'm sure a lot of people have heard their change control departments, if you have one, say, well, what's the impact when you discuss your change? What's the impact to production? Well, with infrastructure as code, you can get to a point where you say, well, there is no impact. The other point here is speed. Chamath mentioned it earlier, but from a business perspective, you talk about time to market or speed to market. You want to get your product out as soon as possible. Well, in the developer world, we have the concept of fail fast. You want to bring out a new product, you want to deploy fast, you want to test fast, you want to fail fast, and you want to redeploy fast and follow that whole process over and over again. So with infrastructure as code, you have the ability to do this. You have the ability to not only fail fast, but you can scale fast. So I mentioned our deployments earlier. From 45 minutes, we came down to about 5-6 minutes for an initial deployment of our environment, and about 4 minutes to scale in and out horizontally. And with my personal belief is it's virtually impossible to scale horizontally without infrastructure as code. If you had to ask me to configure and deploy a fully distributed WSO2 API manager, it would take me comfortably, and this is a pat on the back, but it would take me about 4 or 5 days to do it comfortably in my spare time. If you pushed really hard, which I've done before, I could do it in a day. But when it's Black Friday, that day to scale, when your systems are taking strain, that day is way too long. You need to start getting down to hours or hopefully minutes where you can have, where you can start handling the load as it goes up. So yes, we were able to bring it down to 4 minutes, and something where we'd like to go with it is to start using machine learning, which you're able to do in AWS quite easily with CloudFormation. start using machine learning algorithms to tell us when we should scale before we even know. So that 4 minutes effectively becomes 0 minutes, because my machine learning algorithms are going to tell me, okay, on this day or this day of the week, you have more load, you need to scale. It does it for me. So there is no way I'm ever going to get that right manually. I could never deploy in 4 minutes. I could never know myself when I should be scaling. The next thing we get with infrastructure as code is flexibility and control. So my idea of flexibility is having the world at my fingertips, having pseudo rights or admin privileges on every server that I touch. But obviously that is not reasonable. That is not viable in most industries. So we need to somehow find a balance between flexibility and control. So with infrastructure as code and CI/CD pipelines, we get that. So at TymeBank, we had a CI/CD pipeline that was agreed upon by all the different teams. It was agreed upon by security. It was agreed upon by our management teams and our developers and our engineers. So everyone could do what they wanted within this agreed upon pipeline. So in that way, we got control. So the benefits of infrastructure as code and the benefits of this flexibility and control that we have is your developers start having the freedom or the confidence to start exploring more, because they can build up and tear down entire environments in 4 minutes. So in a sandbox environment, let's just do that. Let's try new things. And your management has the peace of mind to know that their developers are running around doing whatever they want, but they can't go and do anything to bring down production environment, or they can't have a scale out to 1,000 virtual machines and have a massive bill at the end of the month. So yes, flexibility and control. You can do what you want, but only within the bounds that we set out. And then the third point, reliability and resilience. So what is the difference between reliability and resilience? Reliability is having every stage of the deployment working the same every time we deploy in any environment. If I'm sure most of you here have heard a developer say, it works on my local. With infrastructure as code, that will be true. It will work on the developer's local, and it will work the same way in the dev environment. It'll work the same way in a sandbox environment. All the way into production, it will work exactly the same way. So we have this continuity, we have this reliability that no matter what environment we're in, it's going to work the same way. Then resilience is being able to stick to an SLA regardless of unforeseen circumstances. So I'll get into that a little bit. We're going to explore resilience a little bit more now. Resilience, you could boil resilience down to a couple of points. Well, firstly, that guy, he believes in reliability and resilience in this picture. Those rocks have been there for ages, and he's relying that they're not going to fall over if a bird comes and lands on one of them. So resilience, we've got discovery, we've got recovery, we've got improvement, review, and awareness. I've put these points in order of importance to me. I'm a developer at heart, so I don't really care about reviewing or awareness, but we'll go into them anyway. So on discovery, discovering issues in your system is it's a constant process. If you are not out there finding issues in your system, I guarantee you your customers will find the issues in your system. And most of the time, they're going to find that issue on a Friday afternoon at 5 o'clock when you want to go home. So being able to recover from those issues on Friday afternoon at 5 o'clock becomes quite important. It becomes important to me because I want to go home to my wife and children, but most importantly, it's important to a business. And in our case, a lot of people like me are going home and they're paying with their card because they want to put in fuel or they want to buy their takeout or whatever on a Friday afternoon. And at TymeBank, that was very important that those people, when they go and pay with their card, it works every single time. So being able to recover from any problems, it becomes super important. How much more important if it's not just any Friday, but it's Black Friday? You want to recover very quickly. With infrastructure as code, you're able to recover really quickly once you've discovered your issue. Those 1,600 lines of code, it becomes simple enough to add 4 lines to that code and recover completely from the issue. It also becomes easy from a disaster recovery perspective, where, all right, the system there's an issue in the system. Let's just bring up an entire new environment. We can and redirect traffic to that new environment. With infrastructure as code, we can do that. We no longer have to rely on developers or engineers logging into specific servers and fixing things. So once we've recovered, we obviously want to improve. And improvement with infrastructure as code is way easier. So next year, Black Friday, those couple of lines of code have been added there. So we've already improved. We're not going to go through the same issues next year. We're able to then review. CloudFormation has got a nice function where it can detect drift. So with CloudFormation, you've told it how your environment should look. In a couple of weeks' time, scaling out or scaling in, your infrastructure will look or might look a little bit different. And with CloudFormation, we can detect that drift, so we can review. And all of these points help create more of an awareness as to what our code does and where possible issues are in our code or in our system. So my last point is the future. So where would I like to see, what future do I see? Well, we already have full stack developers. And if you don't know what full stack development is, it's basically knowing a whole bunch of different technologies to own a development lifecycle end to end. And I understand how to code my application, and I also understand how the databases work behind my application. I would want to see that expand to developers working with their infrastructure, understanding their infrastructure, because they're now using it as code. So I would like to see a world where everything is automated and everything is infrastructure as code. That's it from me. If anyone has any questions, I'd like to answer them for you. Thank you very much.
Awesome.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Question. There's a question here. Does WSO2 support lambdas? And if yes, what are the benefits? So WSO2 does support lambdas. Obviously, the benefits of lambda functions is running a very small piece of code. Running a very small piece of code over and over and over, and not needing to have it on a server. So it becomes very cheap, and you can run those lambdas, and you can expose those lambdas quite easily with WSO2. Sorry, Steve, how is best for me to answer the questions the way I did?
Yeah, I think go through those questions. You can see them on the screen, right? You know?
Yes, I can.
Go through those.
Cool. Another question. What tool do you use for infrastructure as code? So we use AWS has a tool native to AWS called CloudFormation. We wanted to be as cloud native as possible, so we used CloudFormation. There are more tools like HashiCorp has a tool called Terraform, where you can have your infrastructure as code cloud agnostic. So whatever cloud environment you want to deploy into, you can use Terraform to lay out your infrastructure. So let me just go back to this slide. You can have this is YAML and this is CloudFormation. You can now have a different language with Terraform to deploy your infrastructure as code. And then the latest thing from AWS as well is the CDK, the Cloud Development Kit, where you can start coding your infrastructure as code using whatever your language of choice is. So they've got a CDK for Java, for Python, for JavaScript, etc. I hope that answers your question. Another question here is why did we use CloudFormation and not Terraform? And how did we tackle log insights? So the CloudFormation, I think I answered that a little bit earlier. We used CloudFormation because it was native to AWS, and we tried to be as native as possible when it came to AWS. TymeBank is a partner with AWS, so we try to be as native as possible. Log insights, WSO2, as you all know, whatever happens within WSO2, those get shipped to log files on this the file system. What we did is we shipped those logs to an S3 bucket, which is cloud storage, and we had CloudFormation, CloudWatch, which is AWS's monitoring tool or monitoring service. We had CloudWatch pass those logs, and basically that gave us some centralized logging, and we're able to have more insights into our logs using CloudWatch. So please explain, another question here, please explain the relationship between an instance and an AMI. An instance would be a virtual machine. So in AWS, they're called EC2, which is Elastic Cloud Compute, but that's any virtual machine. That's the actual server or slot on a server that you're using. An AMI is, it's called an Amazon Machine Image. An AMI is the image of what's running on top of that EC2 instance. So you could take a snapshot of your OS in its current state, and you can then, every time you create a new virtual machine, you could create it with that image. So every time a new virtual machine comes up, it comes popped up with whatever was installed on it. So we used AMIs in our case that were that had WSO2 pre-installed on those AMIs and pre-configured, so that when we scaled, and that's how when we scaled in and out, WSO2 was already there and already running. So it made scaling much faster. Does WSO2 provide a benefit over native AWS? Yes. WSO2, I'm assuming that that you are talking, I'm going to assume you're talking about something like the API manager. The API manager or the WSO2 API manager versus native AWS, it offers you a better control over the life cycle of an API. So versioning of that API, having users able to use different versions of the same API, and also the API store, having an API store that you can have people log into your store, see what APIs you have available. That is a great benefit as well of WSO2.
But there's no more questions, so you got hounded there. Good job, well done. Thank you.
Sure.
We can also pick up in the Q&A at the end of the session. So I think, Brian, if we can transition the video across, we're now going to hand over to Paul, who's going to do our closing wrap for us. So once again, thank you, Gino.